Josh, thank you so much for being here and speaking with us.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I guess we'll just dive right in. And my first question is kind of about your genre of music or your lack of genre. You're known as like a cross-genre, genre-hopping musician, and I'm just wondering if you could just like walk us through that musical journey and how did you get to the point that you're at now?
I mean, I just, I would, I wouldn't even, add any fanfare or anything. I'm just, it's like most people, just like dudes that like music, and yeah. So like, if it's music and it's cool, I'm into it in some respect. Yeah, but I went to school for like classical violin and stuff, and but just like listening to a lot of things. So from rock and hip hop to some bluegrass and stuff like that, which kind of comes with a lot of violin territory, and play a couple items for like bass and stuff like that, electric. So like those genres that's big in I'm into, but yeah, yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I was born in the Bay Area. I moved pretty young, and my family moved around a bunch. So spent most of my childhood in Georgia, in a little town called Augusta, and Nashville, Tennessee. And actually, definitely moving to Nashville. My family moved there when I was in high school. That was a really great spot for getting to do a lot of different types of things.
Mhm.
Especially just being a kid and in high school. If there are any kids listening to this, it's such a great opportunity to make friends, is via music. And so like I was taking like the PSAT one day, and like some guy behind me was like, "Hey man, do you go here?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, I think I had a violin or something." He's like, "Want to play in my band?" And I was like, "Sure." And played indie rock band and did other things like through that. And then it's just a great way to meet people from maybe people that are different from yourself, or like yourself or whatever. And of course, when you're playing shows with different bands, hopefully you have different lineups, and you just get to meet a bunch of folks and interact and play your instrument and learn a lot of things. So very very slowly, learn a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then you start whatever adding some extensions to the indie rock band trads, and then playing some jazz. And then you start to study that a little bit, and there's so much that's
Yeah.
gone on.
Yeah. And I guess sticking with the band track, could you tell us about your current ensemble band, Warp Trio? What's next for them? What do you are they still like what are you
Oh
doing?
yeah, yeah. We just got back from we are doing a little festival outside of Baltimore a couple days ago, and in the road. I guess day after tomorrow, to do a little residency in Syracuse. That's gonna be super fun because it's kind of a special program we do. Um, it's all music by like black composers and poetry, and we do it in conjunction with an MC who's like amazing, and I've played her band, almost since my early days here, and so it's really nice to collaborate. Her name's Liquid, and she's just a wonderful, you know, uh, architect with words, and in addition to being a wonderful person. So that's a cool, you know, thing with like this like hip hop stuff. There's like some little gospel. There's of course some classical and some jazz, and some weirder jazz, and yeah, super super fun show. So we're in the row with that, and a couple of days with that, um, and yeah.
That sounds amazing. That sounds so much fun. And how long have you all been together again? The ensemble?
In that group, probably 6 or 7 years, something like that at this point. But the cellist and I actually, we grew up together in Nashville, so we used to play in a quartet when we were like 14, 15, whatever. And the drummer and I went to college together here, so 15 years ago we used to play in a group, and yeah.
That's awesome. You are the winner of the 2022 Division One Tribeca New Music Young Composer Competition. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. And you will be performing next month, or if you're listening to this in October, you'll be performing in October your award-winning piece, Venny, a dystopian cowgirl fantasy for violin and fixed electronics. So could you maybe tell us a little bit about that piece and kind of tell us what the audience can expect to hear from it?
Yeah, this little thing was commissioned by a friend, Adrienne Munden Dixon. She commissioned a bunch of folks to write some violin pieces for, I think, either one, or maybe it's a set of 2 albums she's putting out starting sometime soon-ish, maybe next year or so. So written for her during kind of early kind of coronavirus days. She got this project off the ground, and not having much to do, it got done pretty quickly. But it's inspired by so I guess the group is on tour, and then the virus stuff happens, so we had to come back. And then it's not a lot of work happening, so I got a job on a farm for the summer. And this little Venny piece is inspired by learned a lot of things about vegetables and stuff like that. I have no background in that line of work, so it's very eye-opening in tons of different ways. Learn how to drive. You can drive. There needs to ride, tractors and stuff like that. But one of the interesting things I learned is the cattle, they sing to them. And I actually had a moment one day, very early in the morning, there were all these cows lined up, and they had this cow call, which I think the head farmer guy invented, and just say, "Come, cow," and then the cows respond sometimes, and sometimes in unison. And I remember witnessing that, and I was like, "That's crazy. Maybe I shouldn't eat meat," because that was some sentient behavior. It was a little too real. But I just had a hamburger. It was delicious. But it was cool. It was crazy. I didn't know that cows could be so musical, or that we could kind of converse a little bit with another interspecial relations is fascinating to me, and especially in that musical level, it was super cool to me. I was like, wow, this is an interesting thing that that again, music uniting us all, like humans and the cows. And that's kind of how they herded the cows or whatever. And then one day, a cow got lost. There was a lot of them, so I did keep track of. And I think they found them eventually, but they were trying to find a cow. So that was just I was just thinking the story of that. And yeah, that's kind of where it comes from. So being coming from kind of country rural background of the setting. The piece has a bunch of sort of fiddly type of things, or just stuff associated with that, which violence is pretty. It's almost hard not to do that in a lot of ways, because it's the instrument lends itself to that a lot. So it's definitely some of that. I like dance music and stuff like that, and especially early, code days. wasn't really going to the club all that much. So there's like a little, a little bit of some elements of that in there with electronics, and of course like the actual the call is in there, and some pre-recorded stuff, and yeah, so a little bit of folkiness with a little bit of clubbiness, maybe a little weird stuff in between there.
That sounds awesome. I cannot wait to hear it. Yeah, I was going to ask, growing up in the South where you did, like, how has that influenced your music? And you're right, it is hard to play a violin without making it sound a little bit folky sometimes. So, and I love that story as a vegetarian. We love to hear a happy cow story.
It's real. I'm not strong enough to join you in the club. But I am like, yeah, that's.
Oh, the cows, they're good. So I mean, coming from that, my next question was actually going to be talking about like your composition process, mm-hmm. and how do you get your ideas? Where do you find inspiration? So other than the cows, where do you kind of look when you're looking for inspiration or when inspiration strikes?
Great question, and I think more so than like I think there's so much. There's there's infinity is for all the the younger composers and stuff like that are people who wouldn't call themselves, I don't necessarily call myself a composer, but like I feel like there's this idea of like inspiration and like, oh, I gotta have like this, everything's gotta be some like divine thing. I'm a vessel for whatever art, and I think we get trapped in that, locked into that like a lot of the times. But I in my opinion, I mean, just to get here, but I think there any little idea can be developed and made into like something, and so I think it's more important than to wait for that like that aha to if one's practicing composing or improvising to kind of take those small little things and just see what one can do with them, and then but I think by virtue of that, like other things kind of happen and you can string things together rather than even if something's not like the coolest thing ever, but just seeing how you can spin it and work with it, and I guess that's where where technique and all that stuff happens. So and for me to answer the question, like for that type of inspiration stuff, I think there's all kinds of sounds and things in the world, and for this particular thing, it was literally just that actual call, the descending like minor third, which is nothing fancy or special. We've heard that like a lot in our lives. So that's it's nice to have some kind of a starting point, and if you're starting, well, I was like, oh, the cow thing was in my mind, and I had this very, very small musical I wouldn't call it a concept, just interval, but a thing, so one can extrapolate from that other things and do whatever all this technical stuff. But if we just kind of like pause for a second and just be like, what's interesting to me right now? What's a sound I heard that made me think a certain way, and then something will come out, like something. There's no way like nothing will not come out of you. You just stop for a second and see like what's a cool thing I saw today or like heard. Or
you draw inspiration from your life, like, and you draw inspiration from the everyday, which is beautiful. You actually said something. I think you said something. You said, well, I wouldn't call myself a composer. Did you say that?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not like a.
Why would you? Can you expand on that a little bit? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably call myself a composer on my website just to get composition gigs like this one that I got. But yeah, I feel there's like like composers who because I'm a glorified hobbyist. I don't necessarily compose for like my living, and I didn't like study in school. I had really great like theory training and stuff like that, and I took that very seriously. And if you're doing improvised music and jazz music, there's a certain amount of just like technical knowledge of harmony and stuff like that is implicit if you want to execute things.
Right.
So there's a little bit of that, and of course, just like knowing instruments, particular strings, things happen that make it, one can write stuff and compose. But I definitely wouldn't say like I like creating. I've always written stuff like for fun, but really it's like a for fun type of thing for me. And I got almost people ask me to do stuff, but it's not like it's not uncommon for me to like do a bunch of projects for folks and arrangements and junk, and then like not feel the need to do anything for like several months,
Right.
and then do something else because it's it's not like that. That's not like my particular burden. Like you must create. I feel like that like composers.
Yeah.
Probably feel.
But there's also, you're actually not the first person to say this on this show, because a lot of people kind of harken back to the time when composers were players and players were composers, and it just that's how it was.
Yeah.
There was no really, there were composers who were composers, but really there were a lot more who were that hybrid sort of situation. So it's interesting that we're kind of circling back to that in the 21st century, and there's less of a disconnect. But it's interesting how you say, I'm not a composer. Yeah, totally. I think.
And same with the genre thing too. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on.
I was saying with the genre thing, it's we made these lines and these barriers for ourselves, and really it's sound waves traveling through the universe, and we make them, and it's whatever. Like there's no need to like stratify everything and have hierarchies and blah 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 and all that stuff. So it's just
yeah. I think, and I'm quite happy that there's that we're kind of breaking those barriers, and it's about time, I think. Some people like boxes, but I don't think you're one of those people from what I can see from your music. So I have two more questions for you. First one, what are you excited about in your life right now, musical or otherwise?
I'm pretty I'm a very easy to please person. So every day I get up and stuff's mostly working. I'm pretty pumped to be able to do another day. It's nice to be back on the road more than past couple years. It's nice. It's just there's a whole I think renaissance is a strong word, but there's a lot of I feel that kind of energy. Stuff's kind of moving ahead and stuff like that. Even though there's a lot of like scary things like happening, like I just got this gig, but like someone's like, oh yeah, Putin says he's gonna like nuke people, or I need to check out the news story. But I was like, oh man, there's that stuff. But it's a beautiful day. That's awesome. Yeah.
Do you have any upcoming projects that you're particularly excited about?
We got some stuff with the work group. Trying to cobble together a couple orchestral shows. So like ran some stuff for that, and it's one of them's coming up next month. Then we have a thing early next year. It's kind of like a story narration thing for the orchestra. So finishing up that story and trying to really blast through the orchestration of that. It's about this samurai dude who's from Africa. This guy Yasuke. And that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Researching that thing.
Where are you premiering that?
It's going to be in Iowa, Des Moines, little community orchestra out there.
I actually love Des Moines.
I've heard great things. I was working at Iowa last year, like all year, actually.
Uh-huh.
this commuting between there and here, but I never got to go to Des Moines. I heard it was great.
It's a fun
Taking
place.
Rex.
um, no, that's great. I love that. You're like, the sun is shining. It's all good. we need more of that in this world. So my last question, and first of all, thank you so much for talking to us today, and for sharing your journey and just your insights into all of this. But my final question for you: what are you listening to right now? Like, what's like the most recent thing that you've been listening to? And I guess what could you recommend?
I do a little bit of teaching, and I was listening to. I assigned like a blues to students to listen to check out like some Charlie Parker stuff. So I was like listening to that KC blues, and just for my own sake, so I know what I'm, has things to say when listening for a lesson and stuff like that. And I'm not super familiar with it, so studying that. So I've been listening to that, and it's just so good to study that stuff. And also like the student was into like some trying to get into like funk and like understand that in a certain way. So I was looking for like transcription things to, get a feeling, because like the genre is not necessarily so much about soloing and stuff like that, but just like like the time and how things fit together in a certain way. So I was listening to some of those Fearless Flyer dudes with it's like Corey Wong and the Dart from Wolfpack, and Nate Smith, some of the drummers. Just some really nice. It's great. They've been around for a little while, like kind of funky kind of things. That's newer-ish. That's like just in terms of my tabs. That's the two that are actually, there's like a million of them, but those are the two musical ones that are open.
That's great. So you're in like a funky bluesy mood. It's good. That's good. That's good for the weather, I think. I gravitate towards jazz in the autumn. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And like funk too, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, so that's great. So I'm gonna have all those linked, and so that people can check them out. I'm also gonna have all of your information linked, and also as your projects go on, we'll have all of that on the website. Cool. And on social media. And we are very, very excited to see you and to hear your piece on the 29th of October at the Domena Center. Yeah, so it'll be great. Thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate it.
Thank you.